Good morning. Happy Valentine's Day. I'm Scarlett Lunning and I work with EFR and doing some trainings and some mediations. And some years ago, for about 15 years, I worked with couples that were getting married. So love languages was one of the things that we talked about at that point in time, and it was helpful for them. And so Johanna and I decided, hey, how about if we do love languages, not just for couples, including couples, but also for people who might not have a significant other? Or like, how do we figure out our friends and our family members, what their love languages are? And so sort of expanding love languages throughout the planet, right? So welcome. I'm so glad that you are with us today. In Central Iowa, it's a little bit on the gloomy side, so bright red hearts are very helpful thought to have. So let's go ahead and get started. So very first, because I believe that going inside ourselves to touch our own hearts is probably a good beginning for any day. And I believe that we really are love when we get into that good space, that where we're letting go of some old stale thoughts and just maybe looking at the beautiful writing that twigs do on the sky, or a picture of someone we love, or reading a poem that we really like, or feeling like we're going to accomplish one of our goals today or get working on it. So just whatever gets you into that feeling. So I wanted to clarify how I'm defining love. It's that uplifting feeling when you feel connected to everyone and everything, sort of what I was alluding to in the beginning. It's not just romantic love, though we certainly feel that with romantic love with our spouses when we're in a good place. It's that you're okay and I'm okay kind of bliss. So let's take a few deep breaths and sink into that feeling. So think about being your own Valentine today. I know for me that I can have some expectations on Valentine's Day of what Valentines I might be getting from my significant other. And knowing that he's not always thinking of what day it is and he lives far away, that unless I trigger him with a Valentine myself, that might not happen. So that, let's go ahead. I decided I'm going to be my Valentine for today. I'm going to enjoy the things that I'm responsible for today, and also maybe get myself a treat, like maybe one of those wonderful, in Des Moines or West Des Moines, there is a place called Chocolate Storybook, and they have these amazing chocolate and caramel turtles. But if you're not doing sugar right now, I bet you could think of something else that you might get or do for yourself. Maybe even an extra 15 minutes reading your favorite novel, or writing in your journal, or meditating. So what Valentine's gift are you going to give yourself today? So we're going to identify the 5 love languages, which Gary Chapman wrote about years ago and has updated his book several times. This current one is lots of, really helpful information in it. Oh, and by the way, Johanna's been really helpful in finding a free quiz at the end that we've got a QR code. So if you're, hopefully your phone is handy so that you can check into it. But it's also, there's also a web, if you even Google love languages, you can find a website that has also has a quiz. The deal is, though, that if you want advanced info, you have to pay for it. So this free one will be extra cool. So here's number one. This is one of the ones that I really like. If my partner, or if my siblings, or if Johanna or anybody that I work with gives me a compliment or says that what I've brought to them has been helpful, or likes the cake that I baked, that's a good feeling for me. And as Chapman said, they're best expressed in simple, straightforward statements of affirmation. Like, you know, what you said today really made a difference to me, and I'm going to employ that in my life. Or, wow, you look beautiful today. Or, it makes me so proud to be with you, honey, when we go out. Just anything that you can think of. Or to your kids, boy, thanks so much for helping with that, sweep the floor or vacuum, or thanks for taking the garbage out. You know, remembering that how we say things is so, so important. I love, there's a story about this in the book about a woman who comes to Chapman and is so irritated with her husband because she wants him to paint some of the rooms in the house, and he just ignores the fact that she's asking for that. And so Chapman helps her identify how she's saying things, and whether or not, and what she appreciates about what her husband does. And she lists off, you know, that he takes care of the car, that he takes care, you know, he brings food home oftentimes, he does little things. And so what Chapman recommended is, you know, thank him for those things, you know, really. And so she started recognizing his love language of words of affirmation and started saying things really nicely. Because when you're asking for something and you've asked for it several times, you can get sort of in that negative word tone, and doesn't make anybody really want to do what you're asking them to do. So as we go through these, think to yourself, so which of these really speak to me? Quality time is a big one for a lot of people. In fact, a friend just mentioned, you know, quality time means a lot to me. And are they really focusing on me? We're not just sitting looking at a football game or watching a movie. Are we really having some time, just us, whether it's taking a walk, which is one of my favorite quality time things to do, with a friend or a partner? So this is something that Chapman said about him and his wife. When I sit with my wife and give her 20 minutes of my undivided attention, and she does the same for me, we are giving each other 20 minutes of life. And that really, really hit me, because I often think that I'm going to have more time. I don't know about all of you, but I think, oh, I'll do that then, or get that taken care of next week, or maybe next year. And it's hit me particularly because a younger friend of mine, only 63 years old, died in her sleep a couple weeks ago. She didn't have any health concerns that anybody knew about. And on her Facebook page, it says, I love my life. And I'd had lunch with her and was so looking forward to having lunch with her again. And all of a sudden, that's not going to be an option. So thinking about, whether be it friends, be it family members, who would you like to give some quality time to? Maybe it's their love language. Receiving gifts. A gift is something you can hold in your hand and know someone was thinking of you. So initially, I didn't think about the symbolized part. It may symbolize a special time together to be the exact thing that shows he cared to listen and get you something you will treasure. So I know anything that my significant other has brought me has meant a lot to me because I don't think he's much of a gift giver. But the very first time he came to dinner, he brought just a few little candles, um, just a few little nice items. And it meant a lot. And I've held on to those. And I've got to admit, he hasn't been the best at gift giving since then. So I really appreciate the cards that he did do in the beginning of our relationship, and do know that for some women, some men, after the relationship is solidified in a marriage, etc., sometimes guys forget to do that. You know, one husband, his wife was really, she just had it with him. She felt like she was always doing things for him, and he loved her. He just realized he hadn't really shown her. So for the guys who might be on the call, just think about what your wife might really enjoy. And so he started just doing little things for her, and she was so amazed. And so it really touched her heart. And he even, you know, one time brought Cracker Jacks home for the kids. And so he was not just thinking, he was thinking of all the people in his home who he loved and how he might show that and not take it for granted. The other story that I love in regards to the receiving gifts one is on their first, let's see, it was a couple who they both liked baseball. And so they went to this baseball game at the beginning of their relationship. And he, for the first time in his life, caught the home run ball. And so what he did was pretty special. He had it put in a little case, and on it he inscribed, "The second best thing that happened to me today." In other words, the first best was that he was with her, and gave it to her. And she says it means so much to her that if there were a fire in their house, that would be the first thing she would grab. So oftentimes we don't even know how much something, some little thing that we do for someone might make a difference in their lives. Acts of service. Now, the friend I was talking to said, that's not really my big one. And for me, I really like that one because it really means a lot, because there are a lot of household things I don't like to do myself, or they aren't my favorite thing to do. I can sing while I'm doing them to make them a little bit more pleasurable, but they aren't my favorites. So to have somebody doing something for you that normally you'd be doing, so instead say, hey honey, you know, you can go ahead and read a book or do whatever you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and walk the dog for you. Now, since the dog is mine, that's a real gift. If my son and daughter-in-law, if one of them says, hey, I'll walk Luna for you, that is a nice gift, because the dog is basically, and it was made clear because we live in the same house, I have a little apartment underneath them, it was made clear, this is going to be your dog, Mom. So when they're willing to do a little extra thing that way, that's really nice. Or when my daughter-in-law throws my laundry in the dryer, that means a lot. So in what can, if maybe a friend has done a lot for you, is there something special you can do for the friend? Is there an act of service you can do for yourself? What would be an act of service that you could do for yourself? Sometimes an act of service for myself is to give more time to making my home area more pristine, get rid of some of the clutter. And so that was one of the services that I gave to myself, is I hired an organizer, and she comes maybe every quarter or so, and I can choose what I wanted to do. In this last time, we even polished silver because that's not something that I like so much. And so my mother's silver tea set is now sitting and shiny. And so that was a wonderful act of service that she was helpful in. We did it together. And I'm wondering if anybody comes up with any comments or any special things that you can think of that you've done for someone that really touched their love language. Feel free to put it in the chat, and I think that Johanna can probably pull that up and share it with us, because I would love to hear from you. When we only have a half hour, it's a little bit it feels like not very much time, but I think so many times that there's wisdom in the audience that we are missing. So please either put your hand up if you want to share it, or put something in the chat so that Johanna can read it to us. So drum roll, here is the last one. Dum da da dum. Physical touch. Of the five senses, touching, unlike the other four, is not limited to one localized area of the body. I thought that was an interesting thing. It had never occurred to me. And for couples, it may include sexual intercourse, and for many it does. Others, it's touches that are signs of affection, just like coming up behind you. You know, my favorite is I'm at the sink and he comes up behind me and gives me a big hug. Physical touch is my number one. It really, for my partner who's not that big at saying the L word that frequently, so him just coming over and touching me really helps me to feel that. And just remembering that brings me to that wonderful feeling that I was hoping that we could sink into at the beginning of this time. So just, and if you want to, if you happen to be in a low mood, and you're having some thoughts about your significant other or about somebody else who's a friend, or and you know it's taking your mood down, recall something really special that they did that caused you to love them in the first place, and just sort of sit in that feeling. I think that can make a huge difference, because then it helps to shift. And as I've said at other times in other presentations, that has really helped for me. When you're in a low mood, don't believe you're thinking. I'll let that sink in a little bit. So when you're in a low mood, don't believe you're thinking. I would guess all of us have sent that email or that text that was actually composed in a low mood, and then thought afterwards, oh my gosh, why did I do that? So it's a wonderful thing to remind yourself. I'm in a low mood right now, so my best thing is probably either to meditate, to read a nice book, to listen to my favorite music, to take a walk, whatever it is, to look at the sky, whatever it is, to remember the wonderful things that people have done for me. You know, I had a friend who kept all of the thank you notes that meant a lot to her in a special file. And when she got in a low mood, that's what she would do. She would get that file out and she would look through those notes. I think that's I know that that means a lot to me. I have some that I just keep up because it's just helpful to remember. One is a Mother's Day card from my son that was sent one of my sons that was sent a couple years ago, that when I'm not feeling like I'm the best mom or the best whatever, I can read that and I can often bring tears to my eyes, because, oh yes, there is love out there, and there's acceptance for the fact that I'm not perfect, right? There's acceptance for the fact that everything I do isn't just the best, because he's the same one who has in the past pointed out some mothering things that weren't quite right, right? So what gifts we get from the universe and from other people to remind us that we really are love, that we really are amazing human beings that just tend to forget it. because we look out at the world, or we look at some negative thing that just happened to us, and we think, oh, like I poured creamy coffee all over my mother's favorite chair yesterday that she donated to me when she died. And I thought, oh no. And so I ran and got the vinegar and water. And I see today, I really can't see the stain, but boy, was I kicking myself for that silly little thing that was just, something that happens in life. So we take care of it and then we move on, right? Oh, I did want to mention note the importance. We've always been told how important it is to hold babies, to touch babies, that it really brings them into the world in a much smoother fashion so that they can start to feel that love that they are inside. Because initially we get it from other people, right? Even though it's there, it's really triggered by and I'm using trigger in a positive way this time, it's created by the way that those people who love us touch us. So it's so important for babies to have that touch. But then we sometimes forget that as they get a little bit older, we don't do the hugs as much as we did. And obviously I noticed the difference in two of my grandchildren, that one of them likes touch, but not as much as the other little one. When he's upset, and he's 5 now, so he's older than you would think, he will go and get his mother's scarf because that reminds him of his love for his mom. And he just really, really likes touch. So what will you give yourself today that matches your love language? And if anybody's got some ideas, Johanna, do we have anything in the chat?
I don't see anything yet, Scarlett.
Okay, thanks so much for asking. So if any of you have decided what you're going to give yourself today that matches your love language, and if you've even decided that you know what your love language is, let us know. Yeah, I've identified my love language, or I have always known my love language, whatever. And I'm hoping that you let people who care about you know what your love language is, so that they can go forward. And I love these little hearts that look like marshmallows that are on this slide. Do you all have great memories of Valentine's Day when you were little and getting these hearts on these heart suckers? Because I have really fun memories of the Valentines that I got when I was in those lower grades of kindergarten and first grade and second grade.
Yes, I'm just going to chime in. I remember getting those as well, Scarlett, and I remember the little conversation heads being really fun to share with your friends. And my daughter, who is in kindergarten, had her Valentine's party last week, and she was very excited. And it was kind of fun to get to re-experience that, through vicariously, right through her. So we do have someone who commented that they know their love language is words of affirmation. So I'm just wondering, Scarlett, if you want to throw out an idea. So if someone knows that their love language is words of affirmation, what would be a gift that they could give themselves today?
Okay, so I think I would find something that you have where somebody told you what a great job you did on something and reread that card. I would remember when you maybe baked a cake for somebody or took a dish for somebody who'd lost a loved one, and you got acknowledgement of that. If you've got your last review from work where your supervisor said you are fantastic, or if you remember the last time one of your coworkers said, gee, thanks so much. I had a coworker who used to give the best gifts, always gave wonderful gifts of jewelry, etc., to her coworkers. So think of something that someone has given to you, and remind yourself of who you are and the wonderful skills you bring to the world and to your family, etc., etc. Maybe even go around the table and do affirmations the next time you're sitting down for dinner with someone. Maybe it's just with one other person and you can give them to each other and then you'll get them back yourself.
We have someone sharing that she knows her husband's love language is words of affirmation, but that does not come naturally to her. So she puts sporadic calendar reminders in Outlook to send her husband words of affirmation. I love that.
Oh, that's fantastic. What a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sending little, yeah, texts, etc. What a great idea.
Someone else has shared that their love language is words of affirmation, but her husband is not great at talking about feelings, so having to ask him for feelings is important.
Right.
And all
And
this
maybe,
comes back to communication, right, Scarlett? So it's knowing kind of what your needs are and then being able to communicate.
right. And then how can you communicate it in a really gentle way too, right?
Thanks
Like
to
when
everyone
you,
who shared.
go ahead. Did you get something from somebody?
No, I just wanted to thank the people who shared.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Thanks so much. And we've been talking about how you might turn. I want to get to the QR code so that people can have some time to get that. And so then make sure that you go to the website so that you've got a hold of it at the end of the session, which we are very close to. I'll leave this up for a few more minutes.
Yeah, so I think most people know how to use QR codes, but if you get your smartphone out and you open your camera application and you hold it up to that QR code, which is the image on the left, it should pop up with a link. And if you click on that link, then a web browser will open on your device and you can take the love languages quiz. I think most people know how to use QR codes, but I still encounter people who've never used them. So I always like to give a little tutorial of sorts, but I just took this quiz before the webinar and it took less than 10 minutes and it was interesting. It got me thinking more about myself and my preferences. So I would encourage you to take it, and it does give you a breakdown of the 5 love languages and kind of where you are with each of them. So it gives you first, second, third, fourth, and fifth in order.
That's neat. Thanks a bunch. So I think I've left it up long enough for people. Do I need to leave it up a little longer? I can wait till we
Yeah,
turn.
I think we're good.
Okay. So we've talked a fair amount about this, but always remember that our most important relationship is with ourselves. And, you know, when I say that, I know that there are probably a fair number of people here who also have a faith in something greater. It's my belief that that greater source, universe, or if you want to use the, or God or whatever, is inside us and not just from outside of us. So that relationship with ourselves, knowing that that is always who we have to depend upon to give us love and to help us navigate life. As much as our co-humans are going to be wonderful helps as we go through this, knowing that we have love inside us, at least that is a huge help to me to just get quiet and access that power of love, that light that we have to shine in our families, with our friends, those good feelings that we help to create when we're in touch with ourselves, when we're in touch with the fact that that's in everyone else, even though you might not be getting that kind of behavior, to be able to know that underneath that thinking that they have is also a wonderful, loving human being.
We do have one question that came in, Scarlett, is it possible to have a different love language with friends and family versus your significant other?
Oh, for sure. A different love language than your significant others or than
No,
your family members.
no. Is it possible that you'd have a different like your love language with your children or your friends is quality time, but with
Oh,
your
I see what
partner,
you're
it
saying,
might
but you
be
want something different. Yes, I think that's really true. I think
okay.
that's really true. Particularly if you're guiding your children to to be the human beings that you want them to be, then oftentimes you want to make sure that they understand the importance of acts of service, and you don't maybe need as many hugs from them as you do from your partner. It all, yes, I think that's, and you don't feel a need to get gifts from them. It all has to do with how we think about it, right? Like in one situation, we probably have one love language, and another we might not have that same one. Thanks for bringing that up. That's really an important concept. So thanks so much for being here. Happy Valentine's Day. And I know Johanna has something she wants to share with you. Have a great day giving yourselves the Valentines that you really want.
Thank you so much, Scarlett, and thanks to everyone who joined us for the half hour. I just wanted to remind you of your EAP benefits through Employee and Family Resources. Most of the people who join our webinars have our benefits, and if you're joining our webinar and don't have our benefits, keep joining our webinars. But for those of you who do have our benefits, don't forget that you have 24-hour phone support available at 800-327-4692. This benefit comes with in-person or virtual counseling sessions, telephonic, financial, and legal consultation, elder child care resources, identity theft, life coaching, and more. So one of the reasons many people use their EAP benefits is for relationship concerns, relationship stress, wanting to improve communication in a relationship, wanting to just generally improve the way a relationship is working or feeling for them. And that is something your EAP benefit can provide. You and anyone in your household have access to these great resources, and they are free and confidential. Call 800-327-4692 if you are interested in learning more about your benefits or using them. We also have an app that's available for download. So if you go to Apple or Google app stores, you can download, search EFR. It's usually the second or third thing that pops up. Download the app. You can access our webinars, past and upcoming registration through the app. You can listen to our podcast. You can do a quick call. I think oftentimes people forget who their EAP provider is, or they don't know what the number is. And so if you put it in your phone, whether you just download the app and you know you have the app, or you just put our 800 number in your phone and save it as EAP, oftentimes the things that come up don't happen during our working hours, right? It's a weekend, it's an after work thing, it might be in the middle of the night, and you may not remember who your EAP provider is. So if you can download our app or just put our number in your phone, that way we are just one click away. And speaking of a podcast, we have a podcast called Emotion Well. I'm the host, and each month we have a different guest on the podcast. And the month of February is about emotional abuse. So this is a topic that a lot of people are not very familiar with, and it's very complicated. And so for people who have experienced emotional abuse, or maybe you know someone who has experienced it, this is a great podcast to listen to, just to understand kind of how insidious it can be and the steps that you can take to ensure safety. But our podcast, and if you can advance the slide, Scarlett, please. Our podcast can be found in the Apple Podcast player, Google Play, or Spotify. And it is called Emotion Well. A new episode every month. Scarlett will be on our podcast in the coming months, so that's very exciting. But without further ado, I'm going to let you go. I hope you can take the quiz about your love language. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out to EFR with questions or just use our services. Thanks, everyone, and thank you to Scarlett.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Johanna.